So you think about an office, and our clients are focused on, are they in the right location? Do they have the right type of space?
We have to be clear as leaders on a North Star of who and what we are and our aspirations.
It's really important that driving sustainability is at the core of how organizations look at it.
In this episode, we'll talk to some amazing, incredible experts who will tell us about the trends that are shaping work, of course, from a technology perspective, from a decision-making perspective, from a leadership perspective, and also from the human side of things.
The future of work is a fascinating science right now, really, where organizations are, after the pandemic, really trying to figure out how do they engage with their employees in the right way, but also leverage work environments, how people are thinking. There's so much complexity around it right now.
Leadership, empathy, all of these things have always been important. But I think in the post-pandemic world, in the future of work, especially 5 years, 10 years from now, the workplace is going to be about empathetic, inclusive, but at the same time, high expectations. That doesn't go away.
We'll also talk to 3 industry experts. Rohit, Bhargava, best-selling author and famous for the Non-Obvious series. Now, Rohit knows a lot about what is trending right now in the world across different domains.
I get asked a lot about the future of work and where we're headed. And it's a tough question because it sort of depends on the type of work you do. But usually when people are asking, there's an underlying question behind it, which is, am I going to be able to do the work I'm doing now in the future, or do I need to learn something different in order to be able to succeed in the future?
According to McKinsey & Company, by 2030, 1 in 16 workers, over 100 million people across 8 economies, may need to switch occupations due to automation and other factors. What is the future of work? The way I see it, it's about how we will continue to find meaningful ways to express our best skills and qualities. Work has been a core part of human life for centuries. It began with hunting and gathering, then evolved into farming, followed by industrialized production. Industrialization opened the doors to countless new professions. Doctors, shopkeepers, blacksmiths, chimney sweeps. These were common professions just a couple of hundred years ago. Today, work has further diversified into thousands of specializations across industries like retail, healthcare, construction, and real estate, to name a few. However, the fundamental definition remains the same: effort that creates value. The difference now is that this effort can take millions of different forms. So where is this effort and value equation headed? With the advent of technology, how will people continue to earn a living, support their families, and secure their financial future? This episode explores ideas about the future of work, what's changing, and how we will get there.
In a lot of ways, things got a lot worse. And what I'm seeing, so I study distraction, and specifically the cultural and psychological factors that lead to distraction at work. And I will tell you that from what I'm hearing, we are in code red crisis mode when it comes to workplace distraction. The amount of emails that people are inundated by, the amount of senseless, pointless meetings that people have to attend.
Here's a modern tragedy about the present of work. We work a lot of hours, and we generally brag about how many hours we work. Hustle culture is a perfect example of that. We talk about how hard we worked, how many hours we spent at work. And I think the future of work, if there's a hopeful message behind it, it is that we may not have to work that many hours. either because technology replaces some of those things, which is really scary for a lot of people, and I get that, but also because perhaps technology will make it so that we don't need to spend so many hours doing the same thing that we used to do.
Planning, strategizing, thinking, for God's sakes, can only be done without distraction. And that time that used to be spent almost the entire workday in reflective work time, when it wasn't so easy to constantly get on people's calendars, is disappearing by the minute. And so people are filling their days with reactive work, and they have less and less time for reflective work. And I think that's really affecting their work output.
So I'm really excited to speak to Neil Murray, who is the CEO of JLL Real Estate Management Services. Neil is a veteran with a lot of industry expertise. He heads JLL's incredibly important portfolio of real estate management services. And in my conversation with him at their offices in Chicago and in Davos, we were able to capture some really, really interesting points.
The world has changed quite profoundly since the pandemic in terms of how both landlords and occupiers are thinking about space and the use of space. Obviously, with hybrid working, we're seeing a steady increase of return to the office. I think 85% of our clients around the world have a clear office mandate of at least 3 days a week. But they're obviously trying to incorporate different working models and methods of hybrid, and some people working from home, etc., which continues. The use of technology, being inclusive and making sure that everybody gets a similar work experience.
The workforce is really focused on high-performing environments, and that's really critical of ensuring that we get the balance of that right. So you think about an office, and our clients are focused on, are they in the right location? Do they have the right type of space? So do they need space for focus time, but then they also need space for social environments and collaboration. Complexity of things like they need space for neurodiverse candidates, and looking at how we design places is really the fun part of this industry right now, because offices are becoming high-performance instruments for organizations.
The Guardian reports that nearly half of UK professionals might quit if forced to return to the office full-time, with 58% of women and 42% of men expressing this sentiment. How is leadership dealing with these workforce changes? Organizations worldwide are facing a shifting workforce, primarily driven by an evolving socio-economic landscape. Some industries are transforming rapidly due to technological advancements, while others are influenced by political change, urbanization, and migration. Additionally, more people want to work on their own terms. As a result, businesses must adapt their leadership strategies to navigate this new world of work. Sanjay, welcome to this episode of The Futurist, and the topic is very important. It's the future of work. Everything around us, every industry in the world has to do with this topic. And we want to learn from you what is happening with the future of work right now, and where are we headed, and how can leaders make the right decisions when it comes to the future of work?
If you think about what that is, it's about creating experiences, everything from creating spaces, shaping them, managing them across industries and across asset classes. So our teams are involved like I said, every morning, afternoon, and evening, working with our clients to shape the future of work and workplaces, which is more symbiotic today than it's ever been. Workplaces and work has been going through transformation for decades, centuries, longer. But the pandemic was a catalyst for some changes that happen in this industry that are unprecedented. Some of them are as obvious as they can be. We talk about hybrid and return to office and remote and those kinds of things. Today's world is much more a purposeful engagement with the workplace and a purposeful engagement of work. There are 5 generations today in the workplace. It's never happened before. To your question, if you go back 10 years and how decision-making was happening versus how it's happening today, there's a recognition amongst organizational leadership that this is the place where culture can be grown, can be nurtured, can be a tool for success.
Leadership is really changing, again, as is the work environment and the workplace. I'd say that leadership that we are seeing be the most successful now is leadership that focuses on creating fellowship. So it is around defining the purpose of an organization, ensuring that that resonates with the wider organization. And I also think we're seeing the reemergence almost of brand and association with a brand as people come back into work environments, ensuring that that company brand is reflected in their physical environment, but also their purpose as an organization is really critical.
The biggest thing I would love to see from leaders who are trying to reinvent their workforce for the future is to evaluate what's really important to create the dynamic you need at work to produce the best results. A lot of times we focus on productivity in some sort of artificial metric and say, well, if you've accomplished these 6 things, now you've achieved great work. And what ends up happening often is people get burned out by that. The workplace culture doesn't actually thrive, and people don't love coming to work.
As the world works with a constantly changing environment, it's very important to think about what strategy is business using? What are the priorities that leaders have today? And what are some of the challenges that industries are facing in order to be more productive, to be profitable, and to do what they do best? Neil answered all of these things.
C-suite leadership is having to be reimagined. I think we have to double down on what it means to be a leader, to set tone, to be a custodian of culture, particularly in an environment where people are not together every day and working in different environments. We have to be clear as leaders on a North Star of who and what we are and our aspirations of what we want to be. I mean, the old adage that a culture always emerges. And the question is whether you're in control and steering what that culture is in terms of what you believe in. People nowadays, it's not a job, it's not a paycheck, it's part of their very identity. And as leaders, we have responsibility to really focus on what that identity is and should be, and develop a culture that people want to be a part of and that clients want to have as part of their extended organization.
Leaders that embrace that and really resonate and really drive a sense of collective accountability, I like to refer to it as, is really those companies that we're seeing be the most successful. Top-down leadership and dictating mandates is no longer the future.
According to the OECD, nearly 28% of jobs across its member countries are at high risk of automation. Technology continues to shape the future of work, not just in information technology, but across industries. Much like how machinery and automation revolutionized productivity, and innovations in robotics, AI, and adaptive technologies will reshape how work gets done. The question is, how will these advancements refine traditional jobs and redefine what new opportunities they will create?
I think artificial intelligence in general, the augmentation and release of the power and productivity of people is making us think differently about, for example, innovation in the workplace. I've always been a supporter of the notion of leading from behind, if you will. The idea of empowering our people to make the right decisions, being directional in terms of what it is we want to achieve and how we want to achieve it, but allowing people encouraging people to go and express themselves. I think with the world of AI, this translation layer that we refer to of between a business objective and a technology solution used to be very complicated and requiring lots of people to translate a business idea into a tech solution. I think AI is really changing that and compressing timelines and that translation layer, so people can turn an idea and an innovation into reality much more quickly than they could in the past.
When we have innovation it obviously has an impact on the skill set that people have, the skill set that employees have. What is the impact of a rapidly changing forecast for AI, a very high development that's taking place within AI, and how people's skill sets need to adapt?
Technology can start to replace our ability to be creative if we let it. And this is sort of the outsourced mentality that am I going to think for myself and create for myself, or am I going to just let generative AI do it, or am I going to have some sort of a hybrid between them? And most people who talk about the future talk about some sort of hybrid existing. Yes, technology is going to start to encroach on human creativity. But if you think about the potential for AI, the real beautiful thing is to start to use AI for the things that we don't love doing so that we have more time for the things we do. And that's going to be a constant challenge and a constant fight back and forth. Is the AI that exists and are the tools that exist taking away our ability to think for ourselves because we are letting them? Or is the AI going to help us take care of some of the things that we really don't love to do so that we do have more time to do the things we do love to do?
The power of AI is significant. It is, going back to our earlier paradigm, it is revolutionary. And yes, people are struggling with exactly where to put AI. We're trying to help with developing AI and embedding it into decision making, into insights, into data that we can derive. Everything from finding the right spaces to designing the spaces, all of the sensor data and gathering it and understanding who is where and how do I start to predict traffic patterns, elevator patterns.
Research from Gartner highlights that major trends shaping the workplace in 2025 include the integration of AI and automation, a heightened focus on employee well-being, and a greater emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. How are companies taking care of their employees? Work-life balance is more important than ever. While organizations aim to maximize productivity and efficiency, employees seek a balance between professional and personal life. As social structures shift, people are looking for more meaningful work while also prioritizing well-being. In today's evolving landscape, how are companies ensuring their workforce stays engaged, motivated, and supported? After all, people are the foundation of every organization. One of the core fundamentals of any organization's success is talent. Attracting talent, retaining talent, and really taking care of your employees. Now, very important conversation from a global perspective. And Sue had some really interesting insights about talent retention and what their customers are doing today in order to create workplaces that are ready for the future.
Some of the big focus of a lot of our clients right now is around talent retention and talent attraction. And that's challenging because more so than ever, we have multi-generational workforces. So resonating with the Gen Z and millennials within an organization, as well as some of their teams that have been working in very traditional environments. Then it's around creating high-performing environments, ensuring that their people are successful when they're in the office. Now that means many things to different people. So for some, that's around learning and being social and collaborating. For other people, it's around being close to teams that they know they need to perform their roles.
There's this blending and intersection of personal, professional aspirations and life that happens in the workplace. That's really, really important. Innovation happens. Ideas are nurtured, they are born, and they grow. Collaboration happens. So that's one area around how do you design the space to be that way. So technology is another aspect of change. So as clients look at creating experiences, so designing of spaces, as they look at data to employ technology, and then really when they bring all of that together to create experiences, of course it is about operational excellence and how do you start to do what you do for less. It's a very dynamic environment of change that brings all of these elements together for clients. And that's the change. And that idea of mental and physical wellness and health has become, culturally prominent.
I think it's just very, very important to make sure that you set expectations in terms of working hours, availability, because work now can follow us home. Back in the days of the man in the flannel jacket, and the gray flannel jacket that went to work with his little briefcase, those days are over. You don't leave work at work. Work follows you around. And so unless you set those expectations of when people are expected to be available, and if that means 24/7, then so be it. But that expectation needs to be set up front.
The International Labour Organization estimates that a transition to a greener economy could generate 24 million new jobs worldwide by 2030. Is the future of work sustainable? Sustainability is a critical issue, and we only have one planet, and as the global population grows, we must ensure that economic progress does not come at the cost of environmental destruction. How can we create a sustainable model for work that benefits both people and the planet?
We've got the countries across Europe that I would say right now are very focused around sustainability and purpose, and that's being somewhat driven by policy, but I'd also say that's being driven by the younger generation workforce who are witnessing and recognizing some of the long-term impacts of sustainable goals and why that's really, really important.
A big focus of corporations, private public sector organizations is how to be sustainable, how to care for the planet, and how to do things from their business and to their organizations so that they benefit the planet and do not harm the planet.
This is at the core of our values and our culture. And one of the reasons is, to throw some statistics out there, 42% to be exact, of carbon emissions across the globe come from built environments. So we feel a very personal responsibility to do something about it. As it turns out, so do our clients. And this is as much about doing the right thing for the environment and sustainability, but it's a very, very important element of roadmaps for clients to profitability and increased contribution to their stakeholders and shareholders. Because this is all about energy efficiency. It's about using the resources that are available in the most optimal way. It's really important that driving sustainability is at the core of how organizations look at it. There's an interesting imbalance that is coming because carbon efficient buildings in prime locations are in such high demand that by 2030, we JLL are forecasting that the difference between the supply and the demand of these buildings will be as much as 75%.
The U.S. Chamber of Commerce predicts that by the year 2030, the overall labor force participation rate will drop to 60.4%, nearly 3 percentage points lower than its February 2020 level. As we approach the end of the episode, I reflect on the many conversations I've had while filming. Across millions of professions, the world of work is complex. There's no universal solution. Different countries, climates, laws, and regulations all shape job opportunities. Even political and social changes have massive impacts on employment trends. Here are some final thoughts on how to prepare for the future of work over the next few years.
The biggest advice I can share with young professionals around succeeding in the future of work is to embrace the fact that you can do something for a short amount of time and then pivot and do something else. The cost of making a decision to go into one industry or to study one thing has always seemed much bigger for anyone who is young than it actually is when we think about the trajectory of our lives. And anyone who's been in business for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years will tell you stories of how they thought they would do one thing, then they started doing something else, then they found joy in doing something else. And looking back, it's easy to see that any one of those things was not the thing that you would get stuck in. But for a young person facing a decision like that, what major do I choose? What do I go and study? What first job do I take? These decisions seem huge and irreversible. And my biggest advice is to just remember how much time you have.
And connecting not only with individuals but communities is something to me that is exceptionally exciting. I think we'll see that in a number of key cities across the world. We're already witnessing that and continuing that momentum of office environments, work environments, manufacturing facilities are actually social hubs, and people are social animals, and bringing that together and creating an amazing environment is where I think we've got a long way to go, and the future of the office is very much so here to stay.
The future of work is not going to be technology taking over every job. The future of work will be the people who are indispensable doing the work that is necessary for people to do are the ones that will succeed.
And with that, we wrap up this episode. As we move forward, whether you're a professional, an organizational leader, or an entrepreneur, think about your own future of work. The choices you make today shape your tomorrow. What can you do to make your work more meaningful, fulfilling, and impactful? The future is undoubtedly exciting, and together we have the power to build it the way we want.